Hello, 3D modeling class. It's week 8, and today the topic is another exciting one. Again, sort of in the spirit of photorealism and your photorealism assignment. We're taking a little closer look at rendering and then compositing. And compositing is, like, as a general term, like a thing made up of like different parts that are kind of put together to make one thing. What it means in Blender and in 3D is compositing is like post-render effects. And so we'll look at rendering. We're gonna look a tiny bit at Eevee. I still haven't really dug into, because I know that, like, Eevee got a really big update from Blender within the last few months, and it does some much cooler things than it used to do. However, the Cycles render engine is like in my opinion, in my sort of professional opinion, the photorealism, ray traced lighting, realistic effects, and caustics. Caustics is the term for like light bouncing off of things. Render engine. So we'll look at Cycles, and then we'll take a Cycles render that we do, and then we'll add some post-render effects using compositing. And the other thing to say about compositing is, like, many of these things, could be done in Photoshop or After Effects. That, like, you have your render, you take your render and you do a thing to it. But it can also be done in Blender. And it's, so, like, we use nodes. We use a node workspace to do compositing. And it's just, I don't know, it just works. When you can do it in Blender, it looks very nice. And I'll show you a couple of quick examples, and then hopefully kind of relate it to your photorealism assignment. Okay, let's talk about rendering first, and I want to remind you of some like rendering considerations you need to have along the way. All right, so let's just look at our default cube. I always like to put a plane down here and GZ, and let's go to a render preview like this. Render preview, and G-Shift-Z like this. When I turn on my keyboard shortcut thing, let's go. And let's set the world to dark, world to black, so that we can analyze this a little bit better. So if you would have watched this lecture a year ago, you would have seen me like really trashing Eevee. So, and I should remind you that when you open a new project, the default render engine is set to Eevee. And if you look at your render engines, you see there's actually 3 Eevee, Workbench, and Cycles. Workbench is basically just solid mode. That's how it does it, when you're just doing regular editing stuff. So Eevee. A year ago, if you'd have looked at this, we would have seen just like a straight line along here with like kind of some jaggedy edges. But what they've introduced now to Eevee is like just a little bit more realism to the shadows and rendering quality and things like that. Now it is still simulated, so it's not ray traced, which is why it's able to do it so fast. So because hopefully you, or maybe you're aware of like how studio lighting works, but like the smaller the light source, the sharper the shadow. And it's, relative. So like, because, the sun is, a billion miles away, it's relatively small compared to us. So like the shadows from the sun are relatively sharp. But if you have like a big like fluorescent light in your kitchen or whatever, I don't think people have fluorescent lights anymore, but like that's going to cast like your shadows are going to be a lot more like, or a lot softer. And so we can sort of see this principle in action here. So the default light in Blender has just like a little bit of size. You can see this circle here represents the size of it. And so like really close together, the shadow is a little sharper, and a little bit like further away as the place we're casting the shadow and the object get further apart, the edge is a little softer. Now this is simulated. And they do this with dithering. You can kind of see it's made up of like a bunch of little dots. Eevee used to not be able to do this at all. It would just this would be a straight edge, that would be a straight edge. But now, if we switch to cycles, and I encourage you to experiment with this. If you have a GPU, make sure you hit this device drop down here and do GPU compute. And then if you need to, check your preferences. Go to the edit menu, go to preferences, and you can go to system. And you can see here this top drop down is what things you have available to do cycles rendering. So I've got a CUDA, which is an NVIDIA technology. That's what CUDA is. And I have an NVIDIA graphics card that can do it. And so now we can see this is actually tracing the rays of light from the light onto the world around it. So this is ray traced lighting. And you know, it's actually like pretty close. What we weren't getting before is some of the like light bouncing aroundness of it. So let's remember this. So what we can see is like the ground is lit up here, and we can see like it's very dark along the crack here. That's what's known as ambient occlusion. Because like as surfaces get closer together, it's occluding the ambient light. It's not able to bounce around as much, so light has a hard time bouncing down into these little corners. But we can see like here it's lighter than it is here, so there is some light reflecting, even though it's not like shiny, it's not like a mirror. There's some light reflecting off of this surface onto the cube here. So if I switch back to Eevee, you can see it looks totally black. So again, like this is the advantage of cycles. It is attempting to be photorealistic, and it's ray traced lighting. So it's tracing the rays of light from here down to the ground, and it's saying, okay, ray of light, if you're hitting a surface that looks like this, that has this type of material on it, which doesn't have one on it, where would that light bounce to, and how much would bounce off of it? Ray trace lighting. So with this light selected, let's see, we can make the radius even larger, and you can see that now as I make the radius of this light larger, it makes the shadow softer. Let's just compare and see what Eevee can do real quick with that. Yeah, it's actually doing a decent job with the shadow effect, but again, it can't do the ambient like light. It can't trace the light to bounce back onto the side of the cube. One of the other like big things that I like to do is to use an emission material as a light source, and Eevee just can't handle it. But that was a year ago, and I haven't tested it, so let me just try it real quick. So I'm going to go into Eevee, and I'm going to do a new text object in my scene here, and I'm going to edit it, and it's going to say neon, like that. And I'll just kind of G like this. Why don't I change the font if I can? Do I have any cool fonts? I'll probably spend too much time looking for a font, but you know me. Oswald is my go-to. It's LMNO. I don't even have Oswald. Man. Okay, so it's got to be Seago. Sure, whatever. Lame. Okay, let me add some. Let's see. Let's add some geometry to this. Let's extrude like that. Okay. And we go RZ90, RY90 like that. Okay, it's going to be a neon sign. All right, let me put a emission material on here. So I'm going to my materials tab, doing a new material, and I'm going to change this from surface type principled BSDF to type emission. So in Eevee, this is just going to look like it's a plain color with no shadows, and that has its advantages too. That's technically how you would kind of start to do a cartoon material. like something that you wouldn't want to have realistic shadows. You would want it to be flat, like, The Simpsons or Family Guy or whatever, Rick and Morty. But I want to actually use emission as a light. So check out the difference now as I switch to render engine cycles. You can see that it's actually glowing on here. You can see that it's casting light, and you can make this, like a little brighter, and you can, make it pink like it's neon, So that's one of the fun things of cycles. So you can do emission materials. Like you could even put it on. Let's do a new material slot here. And just also drop material 001 in there. I should rename it to be neon. And why don't I just put it on this? Let's see, 3 for face select, put it on there, assign there. So now I've got, one side of this box is neon. GC, I want it to be right on the ground there. Cool. Now, the thing that you're seeing, and it might be a little bit more dramatic for you, but as I move around in this, so this is a render preview, by the way. So you can see how it kind of pixelates, and then it slowly kind of gets a little bit clearer. All of this kind of stuff is called noise, and so it's sort of like the computer can never calculate the path of light absolutely perfectly. So noise is just like the little bit of extra stuff that's not accurate. Because eventually you have to tell it, it's like, okay, stop calculating. Like, you're doing too much math. Like, just like be done with this render so that we can move on. And so then there's a process called denoising. So it looks at the scene and it says, okay, this, like, I'm done calculating. Now let me just try to like smooth away all the noise. Just kind of like smooth it out. So let's look at that a little bit closer. And actually, I want to adjust my scene just a little bit so I can, have a couple of nice things in here. And then, this light, you can go, you can just go way over here. G Shift C, go over here like this. Okay, let's look at render properties. Sorry. So, and hopefully this is a little bit of a refresher, but samples. In Eevee, you don't even really need to worry about it. You just do render, and it'll take 2 seconds and it'll be done. But in cycles, you want to just at least look at this before you hit render. So there's 2 things of sampling, or 2 areas that where it samples. It samples in the viewport like this as I move around. It's sampling live while I do that, and then it samples while we render. And so check the difference. So right now in viewport sampling, we are not denoising, so you can still see, like, especially here, you can see lots of like little pink specks. It's because we're not doing any denoising live in the scene here. You probably won't while you're editing, unless you really just want to see it before you hit render. But just because denoising slows it down. So you can kind of see when I check denoise, it kind of like tries to smooth it out a little bit. But again, not worth the computer hardware to try to do that live. Just keep denoise on in your scene. In your render. Next thing, noise threshold too. This is, the acceptable level of noise. You probably don't touch this. You can try to make it smaller. So like the smaller the threshold, the more it's going to try to remove the noise. And I've never changed this value, and I always am pretty pleased with the result. So I wouldn't either. Now, max samples and min samples. So this is, what does it even say? Number of samples to render for each pixel. So it's basically how much math it's going to do to try to get each pixel to be 100% accurate, perfect color. And I think it's a big shame that it starts out as these default values, because if I hit render right now, it might take an hour to do 4,000 samples, depending on your computer. For me, it might take a little less. I've got a little bit of a nicer computer than your average Joe. So I encourage you, when you're doing your photorealism assignment, I encourage you to A, use cycles. B, when you're rendering, start with a very low number like 64. The other thing you can do is set a time limit. So when the time limit here under render is set to 0, it's going to go until it reaches the max samples. But if you set this to a number like, if I say 30 seconds and I have this max samples of 64, it's going to get to 64 samples before 30 seconds anyway. So you can see it's doing the samples up there, 45, and there we go. So you can see it took 9 seconds. So it didn't get to 30. And then it ended the render with the denoising. So I either set a time limit or a max samples. Now, here's the thing. If you're in the animation class and you want to do cycles, that's fine too. I recommend don't set a time limit, set a sample limit per frame. Just because, and it's a tiny, tiny little optimization, but if like your scene has, like if you're doing an animation, a part of your render might be more complicated than another part. And so like if you just have like a white wall and you say 30 seconds, it's still going to like try to calculate that white wall for 30 seconds. And then when the character comes in, it's still only going to spend 30 seconds on that. So it'll kind of vary your render time a little bit, but it'll make sure that the quality is even across the render. Okay, final thing before we talk about compositing. Also, just when you're rendering, make sure that you know where you're outputting to. It always defaults to this temp folder somewhere on one of your drives somewhere. So make a folder for renders and stick them in there. Okay, compositing. I want to set up a little scene for you real quick. So I'm going to do a new general scene like this, and we'll say don't save. And it's going to be very basic, but let me just delete some of these things. If I didn't need to delete the camera, so I'll actually do that. I'm going to go Shift A. Sorry, Shift A, mesh plane. And I want a monkey, GZ. And then I'm going to Control 2 to subdivide, and then Control A. Oops, not Control A. What is it? I want to do visual geometry to mesh. Control Shift A. No, Control A. Visual geometry to mesh. Okay, great. And then shade smooth. One thing I want to do actually, we did this in the 3D animation class, but I just want to have this like resting on the ground in sort of a natural way. So I actually am going to give this a physics property real quick. So on the floor, I'm going to give it a rigid body. If you're in animation, but if you're not, just follow along. So rigid body. So this is physics properties tab here. I clicked on rigid body. I'm going to change it to passive on the floor here. Floor, and then on Suzanne, I'm also going to give it a rigid body, and it's going to be active. I'm going to go to frame 0 and press play here, because then I want Suzanne to just be resting on the ground like that. Okay, stop it. And then I'm going to go to object, rigid body, and bake. Which one is better? Bake transformation like that? Okay, cool. Because I do just want to like sit there like that. Okay, and then I want to remove the rigid body. Okay, so it's just resting on the ground. Perfectly. All right, next thing. I want to have a low camera angle like this. Control Alt 0 to move my camera. Did my camera move? Is my like number pad not working or something? Control Alt 0. Control Alt 0. Camera. Control Alt 0. So look at this. You can even see it on my keystroke thing. Oh, now it's working. I must have done something because 0 was doing like insert something. It was doing the wrong key. Okay, Control Alt. Hello? Control Alt 0. Okay, whatever. Object. Let's see. How do I do this in real life? View. Align view. Align camera. Align active camera to view. Why is it grayed out? Control Alt number pad 0. Oh, a mystery. Okay, let me just delete the camera. Let's go Shift A, add a new camera, see if that does anything. Okay, Control Alt 0. Okay, I don't know what it was. Something with that older camera. Okay, so, and I want to have a very low angle here. Control Alt 0 like that. And let's even tilt up a little bit. Go to my camera transform like this. Okay. And rotation. Nope, not that one. And like, how did that get to be 0.0000 something? Okay, here we go. Great, that's what I want. And let's do render preview. Okay, then we need to get some lights in here. I want my world to be black, and I want a light in here. Let's do like a point light for now. You know, just like this, and I want it to be, you know, 600 watts like that. Okay. Give me the camera. Okay. And let's see. Render preview. We want to do cycles because we want to do photorealism. So now you can see, and I gotta select GPU. We're getting, you know, some realistic thing happening here. And then final step here, I want this to be a golden monkey. So let's add a new material on here. Metallic is going to be way up, roughness is going to be way down, and the color is going to be, you know, we're going to get it as close to gold as we can. What is gold? What color is gold? It's like orange, really, right? It's like more of a yellowy orange, kind of like this. Do I go deeper? Yeah, okay, maybe like way down here. A little less yellow. I think gold is more of an orange. Yeah, like that. Okay. And then even, let's see. You know what? Maybe I don't want a point light. I'm going to experiment with lights a little bit. This is your like quick little intro into advanced lighting a little bit. I am a fan of the area light. I think area lights are cool. Just because I like to have just like a little bit larger light source. And what I'm looking for is I really want to get some reflections of the light. So let me turn off the point light. And let's up the power of this. Let's make it 500 watts like that. And you need to be higher. Because I really want some like shiny bits and some not shiny bits. Okay, cool. Final step, you know, do we need a shallow depth of field? We do. So let's say depth of field on the camera, and focus object is Suzanne. F-stop, you know, drag it down, make it real low like this. I don't think it's really going to make that much of a difference. Depth of field on, depth of field off. On. Yeah, whatever. Okay. Now, compositing. Let's talk about compositing. So, first step, let's go to the compositing workspace. So, step one is we need to turn on nodes. So let's use nodes here. If you don't have the compositing workspace along the top here, just hit the plus button, and it's under general compositing. So let's see. Let's use nodes. So check the box up here on the top. That's use nodes. So here's how compose. So we've worked with nodes before now. You kind of understand how this works. We go left to right, just like you read, and we start with the render, and we end with the composite. So you need to like have a render to kind of like be able to see this. So we don't see anything right now because we haven't done any renders yet. So step one is just do a render. And now remember, before I do a render, I should set a time limit and just say, you know, like 10 seconds. And really 5 seconds is probably enough because I don't want to spend too much time because I'm a little late because our class starts in an hour, our Zoom. All right, so I'm rendering 5 seconds. It's going to denoise, and there it is. It looks decent. You know what? Actually, I want it to be shinier. Shinier still. Oh, and you know what? Do I want it to be even rounder? Okay, hold on. Layout. Give me a Control 2 on here again. And then Control A, visual. I want this to be like a super high fidelity monkey. Okay. I'm looking at my material here. I want roughness even further down like this. What if I do roughness 0? Yeah, that's too shiny. I do want it to be like a little bit illuminated like that. I think it was fine. Okay, let's do a render. So with it kind of doing what we want, we're going to render image like this. Okay, so even with the GPU compute, it was chugging a little bit. Okay, so let's talk about this. So render results. This is our render result. It's saved here. It also saved it to the temp folder or whatever. That's fine. It's actually irrelevant where it is for now. Normally, you might like save it from here. You'd go image, save as, or save or whatever. But this is our render result. So like Blender is going to remember that this is our most recent render result, so we can actually just close this. Now when we go to the Compositing tab, you can see, or we should be able to see, our render result, but I'm actually not seeing it. But anyway, that's fine. So it's a good idea, or it's usually pretty helpful to be able to see, where should I be? I'll be down here. And actually we don't need the animation thing. It's usually pretty helpful to be able to see what our like compositing is doing. So one thing you should pretty much always drop in here is a viewer node. So we have the composite, we have the render, but we can't see it. You can also up here along the top right, there's this backdrop. So you can display the image in the background somehow. Some people find that useful, but actually I'm not even going to do that either. I am going to add the viewer node. So I'm going to go Shift A while my mouse is in the Composite Workspace here. And it's an output, it's a viewer like this. Oh yeah, and now here's where we see it in the back. And it did pop up for whatever reason now. So we can see our render result there. This is the image that it was rendered, and it's right now it's just going straight out to the composite. Nothing's happening. Excuse me. Oh, man. Sorry about that. Okay. I can also click and hold on there, and I can plug our render result into the viewer here. And so this is how it puts it in the backdrop here. So, you know, you can turn that on and off. What I like to do, for some reason, I think it's a little awkward to be like doing my node work right on top of it. So I open up another little window, and you can put it anywhere. So remember, if you click and drag, just do N to close that, anywhere, you know, like maybe I'll do it. Oops, didn't mean to do it like that. Escape to undo that. If you have the little maybe I'll do it like this. I'm trying to add a new window. What's the trick? There we go. If you click and drag, when your mouse turns into the little crosshair, you can click and drag and make a new window. That's also how you collapse windows. But anyway, you got to get lucky. Okay, so I've got two here. I'm going to change this one on the right to be my image editor. And I'm just going to change this to be, let's see. Which one do I select here? Viewer node. So you can do new open, but then there's also this like open existing one that's in the project, and you can say viewer node. So this is going to be, this right window is what is going to happen as I'm compositing. And then I'm going to turn off the backdrop here because that's distracting. Okay, so this is, you know, it's a little small. If you got multiple windows, you can deal with it. And actually, maybe it makes more sense to do it on the bottom like this. Actually, why don't I even just change this down here to be my viewer node. Viewer node. Okay, and then this top one can be compositor. Here we go. Okay, backdrop off. Now I have it set up the way I want. Okay. So simple, like the simplest thing to do with compositing would be to do some color correction. So if you've done color correction before, if you've done Photoshop or whatever, you know, Shift A. Let's look at the color here. We can adjust brightness, contrast, color balance, exposure, hue, saturation, value, RGB curves. So let's just do curves. So you get another node here, and you know you can drop it onto one of these. But notice that when I dropped it onto the well, actually, don't notice yet. If I want to adjust the curve, you know, I can do the curves thing like this, but I'm not seeing the result of it because this RGB curves adjustment is not, you know, adjusting what's going to the viewer. So you can see like our render is outputting to this curves adjustment, then it's outputting to the composite. So if I were to render again, it would like do the composite of it. But I'm not seeing it just because I'm like skipping the RGB curves on this line over here. Keyboard shortcut, I believe if you might need to have Node Wrangler on, but if you do Control click, nope, not Control click, Control Shift click, no. What is it? Alt Shift click, what is it? Alt right click, Shift right click. It's one of these. Maybe I need to have Node Wrangler on. I thought I had it on. Go to your preferences, add-ons, Node. Oh, it is on. Can I search? Yeah, I can search. Let's see, viewer. Oh, hold on. Now I gotta look it up. Control Shift left click. That must have been the only one I didn't try. Control Shift left click. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So okay. Control right click. So viewer node. So this was the result without the curves adjustment, and now if I do Control Shift and then click on the RGB curves here, it's going to connect that to the viewer node. Watch the difference down here. Control Shift click. Now it's brighter because it's doing a curve adjustment. So now we can see the result of the viewer node, or the result of the curves here in the viewer node. So I don't know. This seems like a little bit more dramatic here, like this. I don't like that. Oh, ooh, spooky. Cool. Let's get rid of that. Control Shift click there, and then I'm sure there's a way to get it to connect to the composite too, but that's fine. So now that we, oops, and actually, why don't I undo that? Let me just finish the thought here. So we're doing a composite now, and so now if I were to render this again, and I go render image or F12, it's going to do the regular render, and then it's going to do the compositing on top of it. Now, the render result is still going to be the render result. So it's not going to change what happened before the compositing, but now we just have this image that we can save. So we'll just like save as, this is going to be, you know, where's my Hennepin Tech Fall 24 modeling? This is going to be like, you know, look at what I have in here, this face UV. This is going to be like, you know, high contrast monkey. Cool. Save as image. Great. Cool. Now, what's another cool one? Glare is another fun one that I like. So just search Shift A and let's search for glare, Glare. So like a golden monkey needs to be like sparkly and shiny like this. So those of you that were like, well, Eevee has a bloom effect, so it makes shiny bits like shinier. Well, this is how you do it using cycles. You can use the glare in compositing. So streaks or, you know, fog glow like this is probably a little bit more what you want. You can change the size of it, or, you know, the threshold, how much of it gets the little shiny bits up the threshold so that less of it gets shiny. Mix. Ooh, that's kind of cool. And then it's like a really cool, like shiny monkey like that. And then just connect that to your composite and let's do another render. And you wait 5 seconds for it and then it does the compositing. Oh yeah, you know, the depth of field, yes, does look better with that. All right, so let's save this one. Save as. This is going to be like really shiny monkey. Or it just means that your camera lens is dirty. In reality, glows aren't real like this, and unless there's, you know, a particle effect. Okay. What's next? And, you know, obviously you can kind of chain some of these things together. So first you could do a color thing ahead of time. Adjust HSV like this. Maybe you want it to be black and white, so change the saturation to 0, and it's black and white, or I don't know, change the saturation to double, or maybe you do, what's the other one? What's the other one? Hue correct or color correction? Oh yeah, wow. If you really want to get crazy with it, there's a better one that I've seen though. Adjust, is it color balance? Yeah, this is the one that I think a lot of people like to use. Offset power, slope, or lift gamma gain. So you can adjust particular bits of this, you know, if you really wanted to. But I don't. Control cut all those. Delete that. Sweet. Okay, so let's think about a little bit more advanced thing here. I'm going to leave the glare on for now because I like it. But now let's do a little bit like phase 2. This is level 2 compositing. So I'm going to go back to my layout because I want to have a transparent background, and I want to be able to replace the background with something else. Or like, let's say I just wanted to put a color in the background, like a pink background. No, pink is deceiving because it does mean something in Blender. A blue background. So you might say, well, Nolan, you could just change the world color from black to blue. Trouble with that, though, is that like your environment color casts light onto your scene. So if I were to render this right now, you'd see that there is blue reflecting on my shiny monkey, which is not ideal for this particular imaginary scenario that I made up. So let's turn on alpha. So remember, in your render properties, you can go to the film thing down here and turn on transparent, and that will make the background transparent. But you see that the environment color is still being cast on it, because it is still the color of the world. So make sure you just set this to be black if you don't want it to interfere at all with it. What happens if you just do nothing? I'm not gonna worry about it. So here we go. Let's render this. Render image. Okay, so this is our latest render result. Great. Looking good, and denoise, and thank you. Okay, sweet. So the nice thing about doing it this way is like you still get like if you were to render this out, or if you were to save this, I believe it's not gonna, like, the glow doesn't come through if you save it as a PNG. Actually, let's test this real quick. Save as, this is gonna be like transparent test. Transparent test. Okay, save as image, and let me just find that and open it real quick. Fall 24. Modeling, transparent test. Right. So I think this is just like I've run into this a bunch, and it really bugs me because I want, like, you can see in this exact same spot the glow, like you can see it's doing the glow here, and you can see it's doing the glow here, but it's not going over the transparency. So for whatever reason, Blender, this is like a bad thing about Blender in my opinion. But that the transparency doesn't follow when you actually save the image out. Bummer. So, but fear not, because we can do it with compositing. So I'm gonna close that. That's our end result. Let's go back to the compositing workspace. So now what we want is, we want to, oops, got a message. Okay, I got distracted and I don't remember what I was just saying. So we're putting a background on this. So take a look. Our render layers. Here's our render layer. This is the result. So there's actually 3 things that come out of here. There's the rendered image, there's the alpha data, and then there's the noisy image. So actually, if just out of curiosity, let's put the noisy image in there. Well, and so one thing to be aware of. Actually, I'll cover that in a second. It actually, oh yeah, you can see there's a little bit of noise down here when we zoom in versus the regular image. This is noisy, unnoisy. It's a smooth down. Okay, anyway, so we can input a color into our scene here. So let's just add a new input, and it's just gonna be, or can it just be? Yeah, which one do we want to do? I believe you can just do constant, yeah, input constant RGB. So this is just like, you know, there's no input here. It's just outputting a constant color. Okay, now what we need to combine, let's just choose, you know, blue to be our color or whatever. To combine two different things. You need a node, and I realize I'm like very zoomed out. We need a node that's called alpha over. So we go Shift A and let's search, and it's called alpha over. One thing to be aware of is that you can do compositing with Eevee, but like some of these things aren't available, and I like really like struggled with this one time because I was like, why the heck can't I do alpha over? Like, where is it? Like, I know this is the one, and it's just because I was set to Eevee. Like, alpha over just doesn't exist in cycles for whatever reason. So I'm going to plug my alpha over into our image here. You can see that right now it's just doing like, nothing on nothing, so it's nothing. I always get the order of this wrong, but so there's a top one and a bottom one. And so let's just do image here and then image here like this. And then we need one more thing. So the factor here, this gray one, this is going to take in the alpha data. So actually, okay, here, before I even do that, let me cut all that. Let me just show you just what the alpha looks like. So this is what the alpha is. So like the black is the transparent and the gray is the like something here. So the areas that are black are going to be see-through. Okay, so let me cut that. So image goes in here, color goes in here, and noise goes into factor like this, and then oh, okay, so I did it backwards. So you can see that the transparents have nothing. The transparent has nothing in it. And then where the monkey is, it's blue. So I just need to switch these around. I got these backwards. So the color should go into the top one, and the rendered layer should go into the bottom one like this. Aha, there we go. So now and this is where like getting your wires crossed, can be annoying. But so like what it's doing is it's taking the rendered image, it's taking the color, and then it's taking the alpha value and saying, okay, cut out the color where there's an image underneath. I know it's kind of complicated, but alpha over is your friend here. Cool. So you can see, like, with enough compositing, enough crazy things happening, your scene can start to get kind of busy. Now, so this is what's known as, like, these are different passes. They call it a pass. And it's sort of like the number of different things that are calculated in a render. So you're calculating like the render. It's also like doing a pass at calculating the alpha, and then there's also a noisy image. I'm maybe not exactly describing that in the best way, but if you go over to your view layer tab over here, you've maybe actually never looked in here, but there's this drop down that is passes. And you can see all of the different like passes, basically different types of renders that you can do. So combined is this. It's the composite. It's like everything together. So you pretty much always do that. But there's also another thing that's called Z. And it shows you it's a render of things based on like how far apart they are. So actually I'm gonna do Z and mist. And you can see as I check these off, I get new nodes here on my render layers. So like you can see there's mist and now there's Z. UV position normal, like there's a bunch of stuff. The other one I'm gonna do is ambient occlusion. That's a cool one. And then I'm also gonna do you can do like different types of lighting. I'm gonna do glossy direct lighting, and then I'm gonna do diffuse indirect lighting, just to like show you a couple different examples. And so here's the deal with compositing too. Anytime you change the render settings or change like the scene itself, you need to do a new render. So I need to render again because now it's gonna do the Z, the mist, the indirect, diffuse, direct, glossy, and ambient occlusion. So let's render this image again. It's going to do all these different passes. So maybe I'll pause. Okay, didn't take long. Like literally 10 seconds. Okay, so this is our most recent render result. And now what I'll go through is I'm just gonna like Control Shift click so you can see all the different results, the different render passes here. So we have, this is just the image. This is the regular image. If I Control click again, this is the alpha pass. This says like white is solid, black is transparent. This is the depth or the Z pass. So like you can use this sort of, there's some effects where it's like if you want things to be closer, or like an effect to happen only to things that are closer versus farther. Like this is a way that you could do like a fake camera blur or something like that. I can't think of any great examples where you can do it, but like you can see that, so like white is further away, gray is closer. So you can see like down here at the bottom, it's just a little bit closer. This one's not too exciting. Mist is sort of a similar thing, but I think just inverse. Diffuse indirect lighting. So you can see here, this is the area of our render that is receiving diffuse indirect lighting. So it's pretty much just stuff that's bouncing off of the gold here. Glossy direct lighting. These are the areas that are receiving glossy direct light. Kind of interesting. AO, ambient occlusion. So this is, I kind of hinted at ambient occlusion a little bit, but basically, it's a little bit more of an accurate representation of lighting, and it's occluding the ambient light where things are closer together. So like down here at the very bottom, you know, there wouldn't be a lot of ambient light bouncing on here. You can see it's floating just a little bit. Oh, it's going to drive me crazy. Or like down here. Or even like in the eyes here, like you can see that there's like some dark areas here. So this is just like a little bit, just a little bit more dynamic lighting and shading here. So why don't let's use that one for now as an example, just to see what kind of a difference it makes. It's getting dark. I gotta turn my light on. Okay, so if you're familiar with mix effects, if you've done Photoshop or Illustrator or After Effects, you've maybe done like different like blending modes, like boom, add, subtract, multiply. That's just math, but hard light, soft light, overlay, things like that. So that we can use the ambient occlusion to do the thing. So first, what we need is we actually need to alpha over, because if you remember, the ambient occlusion is black. So we need to like cut out, or it has this black in the background, so we need to cut out the thing. So I'm just going to do Shift D to duplicate the alpha over. Why don't I also put the glare back there in the viewer? Actually, maybe I'll put it here so I know what I'm doing. And let's take, so we'll take the, how are we going to do this? So you have to be a little bit of a puzzle solver. So we're going to take the ambient occlusion and put it into the top one. And we need the alpha, and we're going to put that into the factor. We're going to take the alpha over image and put it in here like this. No. What am I? It's a puzzle I need to solve. Actually, hold on. Okay, I'm doing this out of order. So we would want to do this before we get to before we add in the background. So let me think about this. Okay, so rather than alpha over, we actually want like a mix effect. So let's see. This is going to be mix. Under mix, we can do which one would be best? I think if I just do mix like this, mix. You would think I would have done this before. I have. Let's mix. Okay, so let's mix your regular image here and our ambient occlusion like this. Let me cut those. And alpha goes like this, factor, and let's put that into our viewer. And let's see, we would want it to be like multiply or screen. Yeah, multiply, right? So this would be this is with This is without ambient occlusion. This would be with ambient occlusion. Without, with, clamp. Yeah, so like, and then you could put a curves like in between here like this on the ambient occlusion one. So let me search for curves and do RGB curves like this. You can stick it in here. These kind of move around a little, and then you can change. You can adjust how much you want it to like do the thing. So this is all just little bits, and then we can do the alpha over here and the factor here to this one like that, except I probably got them backwards again. Do I need to switch those? Oh, and I don't have it connected to the viewer. Okay, and then this goes here, and then there we go. Yep, got them backwards. Switch that. This goes here. Okay. So can you follow? Is it small enough? Let me just adjust this. So have fun with nodes, everybody. Okay, so we're starting with our rendered layers. We've got a regular rendered image. We've got the alpha value, and we also have an ambient occlusion render. We're taking the ambient occlusion render and we're brightening it up a little bit. Then I'm going to take that and I am multiplying it. It's like a mathematical thing, I'm multiplying it on top of the regular rendered image to give it that, like a little extra darkness. So this is before, after, before, after. I don't know. Maybe you think it looks bad. It actually kind of does, but it's just for demonstration purposes. Okay. And then what I'm doing is I'm taking the color blue and I'm plugging it in the background using an alpha over node. So I'm taking the result of the ambient occlusion multiplication, adding in the blue background. Then, final step, I'm putting a glare on it. And then we've got two outputs. One is outputting just to my viewer node here, and then one is outputting to the composite. So now if I do another render here like this, we can see it'll do the actual rendering, and then it'll do the compositing. And it should, sometimes there's a little like pop-up here with the compositing happening. Great. Nice. Okay, final thing I'll show you, and then I'll tell you about a quick model you have real quick. Let's say you wanted to have the shadows on here. So actually, I'm going to go back to my layout real quick, and I'm going to change the view of this a little bit. Control-Alt-0 like that, so we can see just a little bit more of the shadows. But let's say you also wanted this to be kind of like the world color, so you could sort of have like a seamless feel to it. One thing you can do is you can tell something to be a shadow catcher. So I'm going to select the floor here. And if you go to your object properties under, I believe it's in visibility. Yes, here in visibility, you can, there's this mask option and you can say shadow catcher. And let's see, only render shadows and reflections on this object. For compositing renders into real footage, objects with this setting are considered to already exist in the footage. So we can see we're still seeing the reflection of it in the gold here, but we're not actually seeing the real thing. So you might want to like maybe put a material on it and just maybe make it a darker color if you don't want it to like shine as much. But to each their own. Maybe make it black, or if you really don't want it. And then if you do a render like this, how we have the compositing set up, it'll make the whole background blue. So this is kind of a cool, handy thing to do a shadow catcher like this and do some compositing. And yep, there it is. Nice. And for this particular example, that I think the ambient occlusion looks bad. Like it looks like really weird and dark. But I'm not going to worry about it right now. But let's save it just, for good measure. Save. This is going to be like final composite. And so, yes, now with the using compositing, we're able to get the glow that kind of spills off of things, which is nice. The ear's looking real shiny. So it's all good. Okay, final thing for this week. So maybe you want to do some compositing with your final project, your photorealism project. That'll obviously come later. Next time, I believe I'm talking about putting your model into a photo, how you might do that, like an actual picture taken with a camera. And there are some compositing elements to that as well. So that's why we're kind of talking about compositing now. Next week, we'll talk about putting your model into a photograph if you want to. You don't have to. Your quick model this week, let me double check what it is. Need to look at the schedule. Okay, modeling. I believe I know what it is. Yes. Your quick model this week is to model a sports ball. Sports ball. So pick any kind of sports ball. A football, a baseball, a lacrosse. Now, lacrosse ball is too smooth and flat. Pick something that's a little bit more challenging. But like, how are you going to get the pattern on it? How are you going to do the thing? How are you going to UV unwrap it? Are you going to put a texture on it? You only have 15 minutes, so just see what happens. This one should, just take a little break from your model to figure it out. Okay, that's it for this week. It's about 25 minutes before we're supposed to Zoom, so I'll be seeing you soon. You will have already seen me, but anyway. Email with questions, and thanks for watching. Goodbye.